Hi, I've clicked onto the Tropical Tidbit for Thursday, August 25th, 2016. The thoughts expressed in this video are mine alone, and in making decisions, please always consult the National Hurricane Center and National Weather Service. Well, here's Invest 99 today, and we've learned a little bit more, I think, than the last couple of days here, at least going into the weekend, of how the situation is going to evolve. What we've seen today and from last night is that Invest 99 has been unable to generate thunderstorms over its surface circulation, which you can see right here, this little swirly moving toward the west, and this is a lot weaker than it was yesterday. And why? Well, a couple of reasons. We talked about how it needs to generate thunderstorms over it in order to maintain strength, and it has not been able to do that because of a combination of vertical shear and the fact that Hispaniola is in the way here. Now, no, the system did not pass over Hispaniola, but that doesn't mean Hispaniola has no effect here. Hispaniola is effectively blocking the southeasterly inflow, moist inflow, a good inflow for the system out of the southeast here, and that is preventing some good moist air from getting into the environment and also helping to generate vorticity where this low has been trying to form. In addition, this air, when whatever does get over the mountains, does downslope, and when it sinks like that on the other side of the mountains, it dries out. And we have very dry air in the vicinity of the circulation right now. In fact, the recon plane that's flying in there as I speak is finding at about 10,000 feet mid-level relative humidities of about 40 to 50% here. This distance between the temperature and the dew point is quite large. This indicates very dry air in the vicinity of the center of the vorticity maximum that they're flying in here. Obviously, they're not finding west winds on the south side of this. This has never really been closed. But the pinwheel is here, and it's becoming clear today that without convection over the center, we're dealing with a quickly decaying little swirly here, and I actually think this particular one is going to be history within a short period of time, because if you look at the big picture here, what we actually have is a broad wave envelope inverted V like this, and this little swirl is now kind of stuck in the middle. This is not a good place for it to be. It really needs to be up here. This is where it needs to be at the tip of the wave, but it's not. It's down here, so this wave envelope is around it, and it's actually starting to get advected by that wave envelope toward the west or even west-southwest, and I actually wouldn't be too surprised to see this just run into Cuba here, or just basically dissipate this little swirl here. That doesn't mean the invest is gone, because this wave here will still exist, and this will still have to be watched as it comes toward the west-northwest over the coming days. But because this little circulation was not able to hold itself together, it looks too weak now to really take advantage of the conditions that are waiting for it in a couple of days over the weekend when the shear finally lightens up a bit and models indicate an environment that is more moist and more favorable. This is not able to take advantage of that if it's looking this weak, and especially if it runs too far south close to Cuba. It doesn't look like it's going to be able to take advantage. So what we'll be dealing with is this larger wave envelope moving into this area very slowly over the next 2 to 3 days, and it may have to form a new one of these circulations from scratch. So it is effectively having to start over, I think, over the next couple of days. And because of that, it's going to take longer. If it's going to develop, it will take a little bit longer than some of the models thought before, specifically the European, which thought it would be able to develop over the weekend on Saturday or Saturday night. That's looking a little less likely now, and the National Hurricane Center also agrees. It has lowered its odds of development during the next 2 days to 40%. They were 50% before. They still have 70% odds over the next 5 days, and those may come down a little bit, but they're still going to be reasons to watch this wave, because as it drifts west slowly, it will have time over this warm water, and we have this old frontal boundary up here with lots of moisture in it and surface convergence, and so it's not still out of the realm of possibility for us to get development of this as it moves in the vicinity of South Florida and the Florida Straits and the western Bahamas during the weekend and early next week. And the models have shifted a little bit, with the European specifically kind of changing its tone a bit on the system. I'm just going to take you through the most recent run from this morning. This is the initialization showing the system, little circulation vorticity maximum north of Hispaniola. We go out to 24 hours, and we see that already there are some differences from previous runs where it has had to correct the low-level swirl that you see on the satellite here. It's moving farther to the south. The European had it up here before, but it's moving too far south. and so the European has had to correct back toward Cuba, and now we have this new part of the wave showing up, and this is the overall wave structure that will begin moving west-northwest, while this part here will likely die. So if we compare that to the run from 24 hours prior, you can see that it was a little bit stronger, a little bit more compact here, and a little bit farther north, but the current run has shifted a little bit farther south and weaker. If we go out to Saturday morning, you can see that it has picked up back to the north because this old part died. There's a new part here that kind of takes over as the primary center of spin, but this is really just an open wave axis here over Abaco Island. If you compare that with the run from 24 hours prior, you can see that it had what was basically already a tropical depression here developing on Saturday, but the current run has trended weaker here. And this is key because this is trending toward what the GFS had kind of shown, where the GFS has consistently shown the staying weak until it gets to the Florida Straits, and the European is now correcting toward that, and that's starting to lend some confidence that if the system is going to develop, it is going to be delayed compared to what the European thought before, and that is supported by what we just talked about with how the wave looks today. And I think this makes a lot of sense, that if it's going to develop, it's going to take more time than the European thought. If we go to Sunday morning, we see a broad area of weak, maybe weak circulation moving into South Florida. This would be a heavy rain event at the time, with perhaps tropical storm force winds near the coast in a situation like this, but this might not be a tropical storm yet. And then by Monday morning, the European shows it starting to develop in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. This is nothing compared to the run from before, where you see a bona fide strong tropical storm west of Naples here. The current run is much weaker, and this is trending again toward the GFS. Now, the GFS has no development at all, but the European still has some kind of development near South Florida and the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So this is still going to need to be watched. But just because the European is trending weaker doesn't mean this is not going to be a situation that will need monitoring, because we have a well-defined wave still here moving into an area of generally warm water, perhaps lower shear, and some greater moisture in the area near the western Bahamas, South Florida, and the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. So despite the appearance today, it's going to be around for several days, and we're talking about 4 or 5 days taking a very slow trip through this region, and so something could easily come out of it still, but it's likely not to occur very quickly at this point, given the disorganized state of the system this afternoon and the fact that, again, it's losing its current circulation and will likely have to start from scratch from a larger wave envelope. Of course, it may never regain a circulation and it may never develop, but there's still a chance here, and so it will have to be watched, but chances are a little bit lower than they have been over the last couple of days, now that we've seen some clarity today north of Hispaniola. So stay tuned again to the National Hurricane Center and your local weather office. Immediate impacts remain for the Greater Antilles, Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, seeing the potential for mudslides and flash flooding as convection will continue to fire upslope along these tall mountains, and some rain is possible in the Bahamas as well, though currently mostly dry weather on the west side of the wave. The eastern side will be wetter tomorrow and the following days. So keep a close eye on the forecast, and that's it for today. Thanks for watching.